Hello, my fellow Alaskans. I'm glad you're all here today. It is almost 11 o'clock. They are about ready to begin the event. As you can see, we've got a pretty good packed house. We still got people piling in at the moment. They are rolling in from the outside. On the outside here, we've got Governor Mike Dunleavy already in the house. We've got Mike Coons calling to get us started, and he's asking, am I ready? So I'm going to go and head over to my spot to start live streaming. Don't forget to like and share Facebook and YouTube, and all those others hate it when you don't, when you like and share.
Person from Musgrave, Alaska here.
When you get to, the turn,
Identify yourself. Nope.
That's a lot closer.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Is the person that's representing Musgrave, Alaska? Are you here? If you're not, if you would, please raise your hand so I can see you. Don't see anybody? Okay. Okay, we got 2 minutes. We're going to get this thing started. All right.
But I also have my own pile of ivermectin. So I read from a doctor who take ivermectin. They make you get Politadick, take ivermectin or get or kill the spider.
Take it out.
But whatever she put it in, I can control that. Like
We can do it in trouble right between
nano thing too.
That's right.
Yeah. But
And they say that you can't.
I gave up my teddy bears.
no, no, I believe it. There's nano stuff. They've always looked at it.
Thank you, kind sir. Appreciate that.
He even has a red tie.
That's the trouble.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've seen one.
That's our mascot.
Yeah, I thought that was a name. The Trump thing.
Okay. Okay, it's 11 o'clock. We're going to get started. Elizabeth, would you please open up in prayer, please? If everybody would please stand and take your hats off.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Governor, and everyone who's here today. I would like to recite a prayer. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it is in giving that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. How many veterans we have? Okay, so the veterans lead us off in the Pledge of Allegiance. And, oh, by the way, under Congress here just a number of years ago, if you're a veteran, you can hand salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. This is one of the biggest turnouts we've ever had. I appreciate it. I really do. My name is Mike Coons. For those who don't know me, I'm the president of the Matsu chapter of AMAC Action. If you're not understanding what AMAC Action stands for, it's Association of Mature American Citizens. We are not seniors. And in order to be a member of AMAC, all you have to be is conservative and mature. Costs $16, just like the other outfit called AARP. So if you're not a member, go to amac.us, scroll down to the bottom of it, and sign up. Right now we're at over 8,000 members in the state of Alaska. We've grown by over 4,000 in the last 3 years. So we're doing good, okay? All right, I'm going to lay out some ground rules here. This is not good. Let's do something, but I don't have it. Okay. These are the ground rules for the day. No more than 2 minutes per question or comment. No, I've got something for the governor I was going to give him, and I can't find it now. Bugs me. Anyway, so if you have a comment and you would just like to hear an answer back, let the governor, respond back, that's fine. If you have a question, or if you can put 2 questions in within 2 minutes, that's fine. And the next part of this, I am going to be very strict on. Any disrespect or outburst that persons will be told to leave. This is an AMAC sanctioned meeting, and I will control a respectful meeting and the safety of all members and the governor, and I will call police as needed. Those rules are non-negotiable, period. If you can't or won't follow, now's the time to leave. I'm not seeing anybody leave. Okay. Has anybody seen a little black box, like a jewelry box, laying around someplace? Oh, here it is. Okay, Governor, if you would please come on up.
I was going to say, Mike, I'm already married, but if he goes down on one knee, I need some help here.
To Governor Dunleavy, first of all, today is another day in history. We have a new conservative Republican governor and lieutenant governor that just took the oath of office today in Virginia. And so now we have another good conservative governor for you to be working with.
I know that man.
He's really great. I watched the inauguration today. It was phenomenal. Before we get to the meat of the meeting, on behalf of the Matsu chapter, AMAC Action, and in appreciation of your support of all Alaskan mature citizens, we present you with this small token, the President Donald J. Trump Gold Medal.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Now, as to the format. Governor, the floor is yours to speak to us as to issues on your mind. We ask to keep that within 5 to 10 minutes so the audience can ask you questions that are pressing on their minds. To all, we have the governor for 90 minutes. I will make one exception to the 2-minute rule, and that was if Dr. Farr calls up and I'll give Dr. Farr 3 minutes, or if we have a physician that wants to talk about it from a physician standpoint, I'll give him 3 minutes. The 90 minutes is actually a little bit long. We're going to shut this down at 12:30 because the governor has to be in Wasilla for another meeting. So we'll be shutting this down at 12:30. Okay. let's see, part of the solution. Okay, so the doctors will want to speak to China about the China virus and/or wanting to be part of the solution within the governor's administration. They will get 3 minutes to the general audience. Please use the time we have effectively and be considerate to others and keep in all comments and questions to no more than 2 minutes. You will have one shot at your comment questions, no more. So if you want to get, like I said, you want 2 questions in there within your 2 minutes, fine. Governor, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mike. Can you guys hear me without this? Can you guys hear me without this? No. Wow. Okay. Can you hear me better? Yeah. Okay. Very good. So first of all, Mike, I want to thank you for inviting me to the meeting today. I want to thank everyone here that took some time off on your weekend, on your Saturday, to come here. I'm actually looking forward to answering as many questions as possible. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing an introduction. Most of you folks know me. You know I live in the Valley. I've been here since, well, in Alaska since '83. In the Valley since 2004. Live up above the Little Sioux. Was plowing trees the last couple days because of the windstorm. And we lost some power like everybody else. But nonetheless, was a school board member here at Matsu. Was a school board president. Then went on to the Senate. Was in the Senate for a few years. And then ran for governor, and that's where we're at now. We've got a lot of interesting things that have happened in this state and in this country over the past couple years. A lot of things that I know that concern you and they concern me. And on a daily basis, there are things that we're doing to try and make sure that we don't, like Washington, D.C. and others, take this country off a cliff that we'll never return from. And so I just want to let you know that, again, I'm here to answer any and all questions. If I don't have the answer, Todd, do you want to raise your hand? Not putting Todd on the hot seat, but Todd works for us here in the Valley, so any questions that I cannot answer because I don't have the details and I don't want to mislead anyone, we'll get answers and we'll get back to you. Do you have a Mike, do you have a website where you can, if there's questions, we can post the questions and get the answers?
Politadick, he's live streaming. There's questions that'll be popping up there. I know I don't have a website,
oh, okay.
But we'll have that. Joel, I think, is going to have. I don't know what you got going on yours, but yeah, no, I don't have.
We'll try and get the questions that we can't answer. We'll get the questions out in some format so that folks here can get the answers to them. Okay.
Mike has my contact information, so.
And would you stand up so everybody can see you? Just besides raising your hand, so yeah.
So I don't want to take a lot of time talking about things that may not be of an interest to you. I mean, we've just very briefly we have a budget that we've had. We were handed a $1.6 billion deficit from the Walker administration. As of this year, actually, our state spend is down 7% from when I first came in the office. There's only one of only 2 states in the country that have done that, and that's Oklahoma. When you look at other states and their state spend, we're talking about state spend, because a lot of federal money, as you know, is pouring into schools, pouring into states as a result of these packages that the Congress is putting forth. But in terms of the UGS spend, which they call the unrestricted general fund, we're down 7%. Oklahoma was the other state to do that. There's other states that their spending has gone up for a whole host of reasons, especially when you look at Texas or Florida. There's a lot of folks moving there to Texas and Florida. South Dakota, their state spend is up too. But here in Alaska, we've kept it down. Our finances, our fiscals are actually doing pretty good this year. Our fiscals in terms of price of oil, good for the state, not necessarily good for people is the issue when you have oil at $86 a barrel and you have gasoline and diesel and so forth at $3 and $4 a barrel. It's not good for us. It's good for the state. The production of oil, very briefly, in the state was supposed to be down to 330,000 barrels. Was predicted 10 years ago that this year would be at 330. We're at over 500,000 barrels of oil. We'll talk, and I'll answer any questions with regard to the issues we're dealing with in the federal government. The federal government, in many respects, is killing Alaska. And I just want to, I'll talk about that, and then I'll open up for questions and talk about anything from the virus to the feds to budgets, you name it. But the federal government is killing Alaska, and we're doing everything we can to fight back. We asked the legislature for millions of dollars in state defense resources, which they gave us. And unfortunately, we have to sue the federal government in order to stop them from what they're doing. We believe that the federal government, especially the Biden administration, has really overplayed their hand the last year. Really overplayed their hand. And we believe strongly that that administration is going to hobble itself here at the midterms, because we believe that there's going to be a big shift in both the Senate and the House in terms of Republicans being elected, for obvious reasons. We didn't sign up to be socially engineered by Washington. Alaska's always had problems with Washington. When President Trump was working with us, every time I would meet with President Trump, he would ask, what is it we can do to help Alaska? Literally. I know that the press has made the president out to be some type of cartoon, but the fact of the matter is, I met with the president 9 times. I met with him on Air Force One, met with him in Washington, D.C. I can tell you this. He was always focused on business. There wasn't silly stuff like the press said. There wasn't belittling of people like the press said. As you know, my wife is Inupiaq Eskimo lady from the Arctic. She came on the plane. He treated her like gold. He just treated everyone I encountered really well. So this idea that the president was, I don't know how to say it, was racist, was a terrible person, I never saw it, never experienced it. And I think he, amongst that, I think a lot of things he got a bad rap on. But long story short, they opened up Banmar. They opened up the Tongass Forest. They were allowing us to go to NPR, going west in the National Petroleum Reserve. Everything we asked for, he was helping us with. Now, this new administration is all about killing opportunity. Killing opportunity with, in my opinion, insane, crazy policies that make absolutely no sense at all. And so, just to let you know, we're fighting against that on a resource basis. We're fighting against with them on the vaccine mandates. It may come to maybe news for some people, but Alaska actually was a leader in fighting back on these vaccine mandates. Why do I say that? We were working with the different AGs in 20-some different states. As soon as we got wind that these things were coming our way, we started to work with the AGs to file suit, prepare our suits with the other AGs in these other states. And as a matter of fact, we filed with, for example, the Attorney General of Missouri and other district courts, because our 9th district court, we don't feel that even at this stage of the game gives Alaska a fair shake. So we file in those other courts, and as you can see if you're watching the news, that yesterday or the day before the Supreme Court ruled, for example, on the mandate on the 100+ employees, that is unconstitutional. The problem is they ruled that the healthcare part of it, if you work for a hospital, the Supreme Court ruled that you can be forced to get a vaccine. Now, we're having conversations with our hospitals telling them that's a bad idea for a whole host of reasons. It's a bad idea because we have employment issues. It's a bad idea because these very people that have been working 12 and 14 hours in many cases, you're going to let them go now because they don't want to get a vaccine. We think that's wrong. I've always maintained that if you want to get the vaccine, you get the vaccine. If you don't want to get the vaccine, you don't get the vaccine. I've always maintained that you should be working closely with your doctor for other approaches to dealing with the virus if you get infected, whether it's monoclonal antibodies or other therapies. You should have that right, and you do have that right in the state of Alaska. The medical board in the state of Alaska, just like the pharmaceutical board in the state of Alaska, or the chiropractic board, or the dental board. The medical board is the board that kind of oversees behavior and licensing for doctors. We have appointed people on that medical board that, in our opinion, are folks that support the idea of doctors working with their patients, working with pharmacists. And so, about a couple weeks ago, we got word that there was going to be 200+ doctors that opposed the concept of doctors working with their patients with regard to other therapeutics, whether it was ivermectin, whether it was monoclonal antibodies, etc. We got word that they were going to go to the medical board and ask that these people be stopped by the medical board. Well, our medical board basically said that doctors should, in fact, be able to talk with their patients and come up with protocols for their patients. So to this day, I'm unaware of any doctor that's been sanctioned by our medical board. That medical board supports doctors in that patient-doctor relationship, as well as the pharmaceutical board. Now, are there big box stores and others that don't want their pharmacists necessarily to prescribe things like ivermectin? That's probably the case, but that's not coming from the state. It's not coming from the medical boards or the pharmaceutical boards. I'm going to wrap up here real quick.
No, I'm trying to hear
I'm sorry. I thought you were raising your hand. And so on the vaccine mandates, for example, we even were preparing we sent them a letter, and we're going to work with states like Texas, for example, even on the military vaccines, which we don't think we have much of a shot for, but nonetheless, we believe that those individuals, many veterans here, those individuals should have a right to decide what they're going to put into their bodies with regard to this virus. We believe they should have a right to decide that. We also believe, and this bothers some people, but we also believe you should have the right if you want to. If you want to take the vaccine, you should have the right to do that. That's your right if you want to do that.
Thank you.
If you don't want to do it, you don't do it. And so I've always maintained, I don't know if you guys watched any of our press conferences, but I'm going to wrap this up. I was continually asked, are you going to do a statewide mask mandate? Are you going to do a mask mandate? Are you going to do a mask mandate? And I said, no, we're not going to do a statewide mask mandate. Are you going to mandate vaccinations? Are you going to mandate vaccinations? No, I said consistently, we're not going to mandate vaccinations. Anchorage, and just let me say this real quick so people understand. I got a lot of heat from people because they wanted me to stop Anchorage. Don't let Anchorage do certain things. I don't have a constitutional right to do that. I'm not hiding behind the Constitution. I don't have a constitutional right to do that. Because in Alaska, the framers of our Constitution said that first-class cities like Anchorage have health powers, that they have the right at that local level to decide what they're going to do. Did I think that was a great idea, what Anchorage is doing in terms of this continually strangling businesses? Of course not. I didn't believe that. I didn't care for that. But I got to say, and I know this is being recorded, which is good, so people in Anchorage hear this as well. For 2 cycles, they voted for the borough that they have. They voted for the borough assembly. I didn't put the borough assembly in there. They voted for the borough assembly. And finally, when they decided that they wanted a new mayor, they elected Dave Bronson with the help here from a lot of people. That's the process. And there'll be times that we don't like what's going on. I didn't vote for President Biden. Okay, I didn't vote for him. I got along really well with President Trump for the reasons I stated, because of his focus on Alaska. Okay? But I'll say this. When you're in a Republican form of government, there's going to be some cycles where if you fall asleep at the helm and we assume certain things will happen and we wake up the next morning after the election and they don't, it's kind of on all of us to make sure we don't allow that to happen again. So I think the best thing that's happened here the past 2 years is it's really woken up a lot of people. And I don't mean that people they didn't care or they just forget that stuff. I think you realize that if you don't get involved in the process, you can become a victim. That's right. Is what's going to happen. And so I'm just appreciative that folks are out here on a Saturday morning. I'm appreciative that folks want to do everything they can to make sure that this country that was built over 245 years upon the values that we all believe in survives. Because I always say that at the end of my talks. There was a story when Benjamin Franklin was being carted out of the Constitutional Convention. He was in his 80s. He had gout, couldn't walk well, so they were carrying him out kind of on a leader. And a woman said, Mr. Franklin, what do we have? Meaning, what do we accomplish in this Constitutional Convention? And you remember what he said? You have a republic, ma'am, if you can keep it. And that was his warning to all of us, that when he goes and the Founding Fathers go, it's now up to us to decide what we're going to do to keep it. And the only thing between us and some foreign dictatorship-like government is the Constitution. You see, the only thing that's between us and them is the Constitution. So I get kudos sometimes for standing up for the Constitution, and I get kudos sometimes from people who claim that I should have done things, even though it was in contradiction to the Constitution, but maybe it was in more lines with our values. Everybody in this room, and I know I'm going to get some tough questions, which is good, but everyone in this room should agree on one thing. That we got to live or die by the Constitution, because if we don't, we have chaos. We have chaos.
Before we go into questions, I was reminded we're going to be passing the jar around. We do take donations for our chapter, and that money is used for the chapter, strictly for the chapter, because we don't get any money from AMAC headquarters. So, Tom, if you would start passing that jar around, we'd appreciate it. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start with the first question.
Sure.
My latest understanding is we have only one gasoline diesel refinery in Alaska in the Kenai. The refinery in North Pole was mothballed or shut down. Yet you talked about renewables at the AOGA, not about refining our oil here. Question, why isn't the state of Alaska pushing very publicly for opening North Pole Refinery, starting the refinery at Point Mac, etc.? We are in a grave situation with the price of gas at the pump because we don't produce our own. We need to open up for Alaskans. Second question, per Mayor Edna DeVries, Alaska Railroad refuses to get the rail to Point Mac. Why and what can you do to change that policy of not putting the rail to Point Mac?
So, okay, great. Two separate questions. So, with regard to refineries, there's an issue there of supply and demand in the private sector. One of the problems with Alaska is, and I deal with it every single second of the day, we just had a meeting this morning, is that there's an expectation that the state should do everything. That the state must do this, that the state must do that. That's a problem. I mean, we already are probably the most socialist state in the country by virtue of the fact that you can't own the mineral rights underneath your land. But in answer to the question, with regard to the refineries, we used to have more refineries because we had 2 million barrels in the pipeline. We had 2 million barrels in the pipeline. We don't have 2 million barrels. We're working to get more in the pipeline. We're working against the federal government who's trying to stop us. But unless you have more production, the private sector isn't necessarily going to open up more refineries if there's not enough oil to refine. And so that's, in my opinion, that's a function of production. We're trying to get that up. But at the same time, I'm really hesitant. This is another thing that was asked of me this year multiple times. I'm really hesitant to get in and tell businesses what they must do. Does anyone here own a business? Just real quick. Anyone here own a business? Do you want me in your business telling you what to do? Do you want a Joe Biden situation where I'm telling you how to conduct your business? So where I'm going with the refinery is it's a production issue. We get production up. There'll be more product for them to refine. With regard to the railroad, we're having discussions with the railroad. As a matter of fact, we're looking at the whole port concept, Port Mac, Anchorage, Kabata, the rail spur. We believe that's going to be real important in the future. But again, we're having conversations with the railroad. We know that there is an extension that's destined for Point Mac that hasn't been completed. That was a function of money and low budgets. We're having that discussion. I can't tell you exactly what the outcome is going to be, but in my opinion, we want to build Alaska so we can actually move more product, whether it's timber, whether it's minerals, you name it. But that's a discussion that we're having with folks, including the borough and the Anchorage borough as well, with the port and rail.
Thank you. First, raise your hand. Who wants a question? Elizabeth, because Elizabeth and I've talked on, and she's been. I'll give her first shot.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth, and I just like to read my thoughts. I had to put them down on paper. So it says, my journey with COVID. I believe I caught COVID from a fully vaccinated friend. Some of my symptoms started December the 3rd. I developed loss of appetite, fever, congestion, ringing in the ears. After 10 days, I made an appointment with my nearby clinic. I tested positive for COVID. I was asked to wait in my car and that I would see a PA shortly. She came and asked me questions about my symptoms. I also mentioned to her that in the past, I tend to develop congestion with fever and that my doctor would prescribe a Z-Pack, antibiotic, and inhaler for my breathing problems. She said that since I tested positive for COVID, she could not prescribe me any medication, that I should go home and take off medicine. She said it had become so politically controlled that it was the only thing she could advise. I went home. Later on that evening, a friend happened to call me because he heard I was sick. I told him I had tested positive for COVID. He came an hour for a 5-day treatment of ivermectin. I took one pill, fell asleep for about an hour. When I woke up, I felt 100% better. I also continued with the vitamins that were recommended to combat COVID symptoms. So, Governor, if ivermectin has helped so many save lives, why are you not willing to implement the right to try? Why have Alaskans been denied their right to try? Many lives have been lost. They could have been saved. There's still time to save lives while you are in office, Governor. There are other voices speaking truth that you need to listen to, sir. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So I'll answer that. I was up in Fairbanks a couple months ago, and the very same question came up, and people got very upset because they've had close ones pass away. And when I answered the same question the way I answered up there, I began the process by saying the state, and we can get into what the health department is saying and how that is influencing folks, but the state does not get into the business of telling folks what they can prescribe or not prescribe. And just as I said that, and people were ready to, some of them were ready to get all worked up, a pharmacist in the back said he's right. A pharmacist in the back said the governor is right. And so I said, well, if you want to talk, please do. And he said, he's right because the pharmacist said, I prescribe, or excuse me, I fill out prescriptions for ivermectin. I know many doctors that prescribe and administer ivermectin. I have a close personal friend who's a doctor that does that. So I want to take a couple steps here so people really understand. This is very, very important. Anything that is legal, anything that is approved to be used across the country, doesn't matter if you're in Florida, Texas, it doesn't matter, can be used here. Never said they can't be used. The state, we'll get to the heart of the matter. The Health and Social Services and the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Zink, they give advice, but they do not determine what you can or cannot prescribe, what you can or cannot take, what you can or cannot do. That health department is not in charge of hospitals. I want to lay the groundwork so folks can understand. They're not in charge of hospitals. Hospitals have governing boards, and they are in charge. They're not in charge of the box stores that have pharmacies who maybe their home office is saying, we don't want you to prescribe that. But I know doctors that prescribe it. I know friends that have taken ivermectin. I have friends that have taken it. I'm not saying acquaintances. I have good friends that have taken it. I have 5 doctors in my immediate family back east. They're split as the community is, the whole medical community is on this issue. But what's my point? There is nothing that has come out of my office. There may be impressions, and I'm not downplaying this, coming from Health and Social Services, in which people they believe, they've been led to believe that you cannot do it. But any doctor in the state that wants to prescribe and administer ivermectin, they can do it. Any pharmacist, unless they have a home office or corporate office that is telling them something different, I'm not. Any pharmacist can prescribe ivermectin. Or any other therapy, for that matter. Any other therapy, they can prescribe. So, I mean, that is what's happening. Now, are there docs that feel like if they do, they're going to have other docs go after them, or they're going to have corporate? I'm sure there is, because I'm hearing the same thing. But I'm asking my medical board when I talk with them. I ask the pharmacy board when I talk with the head, are you guys doing anything? Are you guys coming out with any threats against doctors or pharmacists? I've seen nothing from those folks. I was told, like I said, just about a month and a half ago, that a couple docs are going to be sanctioned because 200 docs wanted them sanctioned. There were no docs sanctioned. So we can do this. The question is whether the health department is promoting it. That's really the question. But you can do it. You can ask your doctor. And if you have a doctor that doesn't want to prescribe what you think is beneficial, you can go to another doctor. It's just really important for me. Because just give me a second here. This is really important. I've always been a human being that doesn't like to be told what to do. Okay? That doesn't mean I'm going to harm you. That doesn't mean I'm going to hurt you. I mean, I'm a Christian. That's the governing, I'm just not saying that for pandering, but that's the governing core for me is I'm not going to do to you what I don't want done to me. I'm going to do for you that I would want done for me. So where am I going with this? I'm not going to tell you to take ivermectin. I'm not going to tell you not to. I'm not a doctor. That's up to your doctor and your pharmacist. I will do everything I can to protect that. But have there been people that have downplayed it? Sure, but that's across the board. We wouldn't be here today. Half you people wouldn't be here today, in my opinion, if we weren't having this discussion nationally Like I said, I've got family members. Some of them are on one side of the virus, some are on the other side of the virus. This is the problem. If it was all unified, it'd be a different ballgame. But you can be prescribed ivermectin. You can take ivermectin.
Hi, Governor. Mike, we've been meeting in these rooms for what, 16, 18 years? I've been trying to get an audience with you in my home for the last year. I've went through my senator, my representative, and I've not had a response. I'm glad you mentioned election integrity in your opening statement, because that's what I'm here to talk about. I am so over COVID. It doesn't even exist in my vocabulary anymore. And ivermectin, I've taken it since the outset, continue to take it today. But have to go to the internet to get it. All right. Now, in 2019, you and I and about 40 others met in a room at the windbreak. And we showed you a video called Fraction Magic. And it's available on YouTube today. Any one of you want to take a look at it? I stood up in that and I told you directly that if you didn't get us access to the counting rooms, equal access, we didn't ask for any special privilege or anything that anybody else didn't have, that they were going to cheat us. And they did. Now, we didn't realize, and I'm sure you didn't realize that 10 seconds, okay, that they were going to create a new way to cheat. You told us at that day, can I have just 10 more?
I can't. I got too many people. Too many.
It's okay. Just let it.
Okay.
We stood there and had the conversation, and you agreed. Now in 2020, Lieutenant Governor Myers on Main Street of Palmer indicated that you had ordered him that you were going to do a hand count of each precinct in the state of Alaska. Once again, that never happened. I have written a FOIA along with hundreds of other Alaskans to the Department of Administration, directly to Kelly Shabaka, to DOE, and other places in the state of Alaska, and nobody has answered our question. Now I understand that there's a NDA, a non-disclosure agreement between you and Ms. Shabaka about the contents of her report of her audit for the DOA.
You've gone on to the election aspect. Let him answer. Let him answer.
Okay.
I don't want. I got enough people here to do. Okay. I'm trying to keep it fair.
I'm going to try and do my best and channel the rest of your thoughts. Just give me the question.
My thought is this. Kelly
give me the
Shabaka
question.
has a non-disclosure agreement that she can't talk about what's in the report. There is no such agreement that she can't talk about what's not in the report.
Well, Kelly can talk about what she wants. Go ahead.
Lieutenant Governor Myers went to the round table and he told us, those that were present, that because there was a mention of Gabrielle Ledoux in that report, they couldn't release the report. I have it directly from the author of that report that there is absolutely no mention of Gabrielle Ledoux in that report. We are still asking, can you provide that report for us? Everybody in the state of Alaska wants to see it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good question. So first of all, let's make sure we understand that, and this is important. I brought in Kelly Shabaka from Washington, D.C. I did. I hired her. I went and met with her. I got wind from her relatives or friends that knew her parents on the Kenai that she might be looking to come back to Alaska. Harvard grad, husband's is it Yale? I always get beat up. I'm not an Ivy Leaguer, so it's one of the Ivy League schools, either Harvard or Yale. Anyway, great addition to the administration. Brought her in, and the first thing I asked her to do was to review elections. That was the first thing I did. I asked her to review elections. I asked her to review the National Guard issues, because prior to this, if you remember under Governor Parnell, the newspapers made a big deal about the National Guard, so we want to make sure that we figured out what was going on there. So Kelly came in and did a review. It can be released with some redactions, and the only reason I'm saying this is because, contrary to what some people believe, there are in fact right now at least 3 active cases under the Department of Public Safety, the troopers, being investigated right now for election irregularity and potentially fraud. They're being investigated right now. So sections of that document may have to be redacted, but most of that document can be released.
No follow-up. Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, Governor.
Hi.
Thank you for your service. My name's Marty Kincaid, and I talked to you at Evangelos. I just have 3 things. I'm going to back the election integrity. If you do a forensic audit, it will be a win-win because you'll win the trust of the people.
Amen.
I talked to you at Evangelos about, I like what you say, but those that you have under you, I do not like. Zink is now the president of this Association of State and Territorial Health Officials. That's over 100,000 public health things. It's all about Planned Parenthood, vaccine mandates, vaccine passports, and she's running that. And so my concern is, I like what you're saying, but those under you are not in alignment with your platform. Again, with the Division of Public Health, they're organizing a health consortium in February. Planned Parenthood is invited. The Native group that's all about transgender and all that. And I know for a fact that Heart Reach here was not invited to that consortium that's coming up in February. So I like what you're saying. I believe in you, but those under you, and just like I said at Evangelos, Zink needs to go. She is not advocating. Really no question. And so just like with the mask mandates, I have the box for that N95 mask, and it says right on there, it's not for vapors, aerosol, or anything else. It's for dust particles. And so for the feds to come out and say this is going to be the solve-all, we need a clear direction from you as our leader that the virus is here to stay, and we need to be offensive on it. And I'll just say one last thing. I was at the emergency room with my mom on Wednesday, and there were 6 or 7, and everybody there was either obese or morbidly obese. I cannot be in control of somebody else's actions. They need to take.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks. Let me address you. There was a number of important things there, but let me answer the important question. This virus, and I've said this before, but I'm saying it here. I'm glad we're being recorded. This virus is here, in my opinion, to stay. In the opinion of a lot of medical professionals, it's here to stay. It may be here forever. Cold viruses, for example, many scientists believe that they were a lot stiffer on the population. Over time, they evolved to be cold viruses. It's here. I don't live my life in fear of the virus. I never have. Once, and I'm being honest with you. When this virus first came out, whether people want to beat me up over this or not, that's entirely up to them. But when this virus first came out, I had no idea what it was. And if there are people in this room that knew exactly what it was, I'm only going to say to you, and you don't have to say anything, I wish you would have said you knew exactly what it was early on, because I didn't know what it was. 50 other governors didn't know what it was. Whether it was Ron DeSantis or Greg Abbott or me or Kristi Noem, they didn't know what it was. But as soon as we found out that it was not an extinction event, we did everything we can to start to get things back to normal as quickly as possible. The virus is here to stay. It'll continue. You'll have other variants. This variant that we have right now, I'll give you an example. There's 2,500 cases. There's only a handful of folks that are in the hospital. It's becoming less and less and less virulent. We know that. So it's here to stay. You have to live your life the way you want to. You should be living your life the way you want to. I have great friends who are in, for example, the Republican Party. Some of them are considered to be very conservative. Many of those people I'll see with masks on. That's their choice. I don't belittle them. That's their choice. I have friends who have been vaccinated 3 times. That's their choice if they want to. But the virus is here to stay. We're going to live with it, and we're going to, when I say defeat it, we defeat it by living our lives. We defeat it by getting on with things. I'm a historian. I'll just do this real brief. I read history. 100 years ago, I mean, my father died 2012 at the age of 93. He would tell you that people had all kinds of things 100 years ago. They had scarlet fever, they had measles, they had this, they had that. That's not to say that that's something we should promote, but the point I'm trying to make is you got to march through it. You got to step through it. We got to live our lives. And so, absolutely, we must get beyond the virus, and we must get beyond the virus that's up here is what we have to do. So you'll hear me say this over and over and over again. We're moving forward. And I'll make that decision. I'll make that decision. I'm not going to have a discussion. I'm being honest with you. I'm not going to have a discussion here in front of folks, but I'll make a decision on the future of not just one staff member, but a number of staff members.
Thank you, Mr. Dunleavy, Governor Dunleavy, for coming. I think it's rather brave. These are very contentious times. I mean, I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes, and so I've geared this. I've geared this question with sensitivity, so it wouldn't be just filled with scorpions. So a week. By the way, my name is Dave Maxwell, and I think we've met before.
Yes.
A week ago, the Watchman newsletter had an article in it written by Bob Bird entitled, "Do you trust Alaska politics anymore?" Every comment following the article was resounding, no, they do not. Many with substantial reasons why they don't. I also have my reasons why to the same question that I adamantly do not trust the government anymore. I was a state of Alaska employee, and I was fired for whistleblowing. Let that sink in. I was fired for whistleblowing, even though during the investigation they found out I was telling the truth. 2 years ago, I requested a meeting with you for a 1 hour, just 1 hour of your time. That was at a public meeting like this at Chugiak High School. You told me publicly that you would make that happen and instructed me to go see John Espandola to arrange for a time for that to happen. That meeting never took place, and the promise goes unkept. How do you propose to gain the trust back that the people have given up on by breaking promises? I'm wondering if you recall that event and why that meeting never took place. And is that meeting still a possibility?
Is that a question, Dave?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So there's a couple questions within there, within that. The meeting is always a possibility, and I've got Todd here, okay? Todd Smolden, who works for me.
I'm looking for a meeting with you. I'm done with your administration. I'm done talking to all the other.
Give me, write your phone number on a piece of paper, and I'll call you today.
I have Dave's. All right.
You have Dave's phone number? Okay. And then as far as trusting government, look, I'm not going to sound 1776 here, but I just answered the question over there that I don't like to be told what to do. When I say I don't trust government, you should always have I would not trust government. I'd always have questions. All the time, constantly. I have questions. I have to deal with 22,000 employees, and I can tell you, not all of them believe what I believe. Not all of them have the same values that I have. And some of those people have been there for 20 years, 30 years. But nonetheless, I got to work through that. I got to work. Those are the folks that we have. A lot of good people, but folks that have some very different views on what Alaska should look like. But you've got Dave's phone number. I will call you when this meeting's over. I have meetings the next couple hours, but I will call you today.
You also have statutes and regulations, and they don't follow them. And that's why I'm addressing this.
Hi, my name is Sherry Manning. I'm basically here on behalf of my husband. He tested positive for COVID on November 1st. I was, doing the whole protocol, treating everything at home and stuff. He got worse. Me and my two boys pretty much had no symptoms. But he got worse. I took him, he started having stomach pains, and I could not get his temperature down. It was 103.6. It was a Saturday evening, about 8 p.m. So the only thing that's open is the ER. I take him to Matsu Regional Hospital, and we're going there, and the whole thing was set up like a triage, like MASH, because there were so many people that were in there, and most of them were kids. And they wanted us to wait in the waiting room. We waited for 3 hours for them. They, took him back, tested him. Anybody that had any kind of respiratory thing was not allowed to go back. Nobody else was able to go back with them. They took all kinds of stuff. They told him there was nothing wrong with him. I'm like, okay, he's got 103.6 temperature. His stomach hurts, and he's having a little bit of a hard time breathing, and there's nothing wrong with him. Do you want to talk to a doctor? I said, yes, please. So the doctor came out. I talked to him. There's nothing wrong with him. We took a check. We took an x-ray of his chest. We took a CT of his abdomen. He's fine. Take him home and just treat him. I said, so you're not going to give me a prescription? You're not going to give me anything to treat him with? No, he's positive COVID, so it's probably all COVID symptoms. I said, okay. He's like, do you have any other questions? And I said, well, if you're not going to treat a sick patient here in the ER, he's positive COVID, he's left us for 3 hours sitting here with everybody else, all these kids, and you're telling me there's nothing wrong with him now. I took him home, and he's like, shoved the paperwork, and they discharged paperwork into my chest and walked past him. 4 days later, he continued to get worse. He's on my couch, he can't breathe, he's going, I had to call an ambulance. He was 52% on his oxygen. Had I left him there, he'd have been dead. This is the hospital that is doing this. I asked him about HCQ, ivermectin, monoclonal. CDC, WHO do not approve that as a COVID thing. And they will not treat you for that because it is not approved by CDC or WHO. Do you need to go in and have a talk with that administrator and have him make sure he does this? Because of that, Russell Johansson, my husband, has spent the last 2 months going through all kinds of stuff where he had a stroke, he's had blood clots, he was in a coma for 2 weeks. He's still in Anchorage at St. Elias, but I've been fighting for him the entire time. I know what's going on. I've been following this since October of 19 because I was actually at home to be able to do it since it started in Wuhan. I know what it is. I know what they've been doing with it, and I know what it's for. It's not the virus that's the issue. It's the vaccine. But that's a whole other story. Right now, I want to know what I can do to get people so that they don't have to go through what my husband did with the Matsu out here, because that's ridiculous. It's our only hospital. Some people can't make it to Anchorage.
Yeah, first of all, and I'm sincere when I say this, I'm sorry you had to go through that. Just hear me out for a second. We don't control the hospitals, and we never even gave thought. Quite frankly, there's a lot of the things we're talking about here today that we never really even gave thought to until this virus came. We had made assumptions on how hospitals handle things, and it was kind of baked into the psyche that if you get sick, you go to the hospital. If you get sick, you go to your doctors. We don't have direct control over the hospitals. And what I mean by that, we don't. I can't think of any state that does. We don't control the hospitals. They have hospital boards. They have board members. And I would strongly, and I'm trying to slough it off, but I would strongly urge that you have that discussion with the board members who help form the policy. But I've had, and when I say I know what you're thinking, I had my third child, my wife and the child died in childbirth in a hospital, and that's a whole. What I'm trying to do is have you understand that I know what to an extent, I know what you're going through. I'm not poo-hooing it. I'm a human being too. I'm not just the governor and some guy that lives up on the hill here. My middle child had immune issues when she was a kid, and I almost lost her twice. I can't force them to do things that are not. There's a division of power within this country, and governors don't have control over the hospitals. The boards are going to be the best ones to go through. It's just like I mentioned earlier, the medical boards that we appoint, they're the ones that govern the doctors' licenses and ethics and so forth. I don't do that on a personal level. Can I say to docs, and I do you do this, and why do you do this? And this is the feedback that I'm getting, is they have boards, they work for companies. Some of these hospitals are companies and corporations. I'm not trying to disparage things, but I'm sorry that you're going through what you're going through. And I'm not just saying that in front of the cameras here to act like some people on one side of the spectrum say I have no heart at all. But anyway, I would hope that the docs will listen to this and see some of these videos, and that the hospitals will. I think there's a lot of docs that want to prescribe therapeutics, right? And as I mentioned, I hope they see this, that they hear from the state of Alaska, the governor, that the state is not preventing them from prescribing or administering therapeutics. I hope the hospitals have a discussion at the hospital board as to how they are practicing, and take feedback from patients, feedback from patients' families, so that we can make things better and maybe not have to go through some of these things again. The best thing I can do is have a discussion with them. I cannot order them. I cannot direct them. I'm not a dictator. I can't do that. But that's, some do. It's the weirdest thing, and some do. Some very good friends of mine on our side of the spectrum, political spectrum, have asked me to do things that would I think for the most part, people would faint if they heard the requests that have come my way.
It needs to be an option.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, but they say that they're not allowed to because the CDC and the WHO won't let them.
That doesn't make sense, because I know doctors personally who prescribe it. And they're not doing it in a dark alley behind some place.
The whole reason I'm here is because I got a letter from you for re-election or whatever, and right in there said, I'm very personally to get them on the phone.
Yes, we were.
So they flat out lied to me right off the bat.
And I have docs, I don't know what they're telling you, but I have docs that I know personally that prescribe ivermectin.
Hi, Mike.
Where are you? Oh, there you are.
I'm Kay Shadley, and I live near the corner of KGB and Vine. And we went to a meeting, and you were there at Fire Station 62, May 2019. And we discussed, the meeting was there to discuss the restructuring of KGB. And at that time, you addressed the initial problems, and you got our paving. We got a Band-Aid basically put on, and we appreciate the paving that did happen. But it's supposed to be a reconstruction of the whole entire road, and all the way from town out to Settlers Bay. And I've got the paperwork here that we were given then, and they said that in 2021, construction was supposed to begin from town to KGB, and then in 2023 from from town to Vine on KGB, and then in 2023 it's supposed to be going from Vine to Settlers Bay, and then also construction is supposed to happen on Vine too. But I understand that there's land acquisitions that are holding things up, and I imagine COVID's had something to do with it. But I was reading articles about the upcoming construction this coming year of different road projects in the valley, and I see nowhere that that's even mentioned. And I thought that 2021 was when they were going to begin this.
It's my understanding from my commissioner of DOT that project is moving, that there are acquisitions happening, that there's discussions with the utilities on making sure utilities are the right of way, all that work. So my understanding that's happening. If we know anything different, do we know anything different?
There were delays because of land acquisitions, people not wanting to sell some of their easements and things. Utility movement will begin this spring. It's going out to bid in March, and they will start moving utilities, and then construction will follow after that.
So my people know, I've told them that, and they know, and this is why this is a little bit of a surprise. They know that that is considered the most dangerous road in the state of Alaska. I consider it the most dangerous road in the state of Alaska. When we were at the firehouse and I was up front having a discussion, that was a priority. It is a priority. There's nothing changed on that. If it got started years ago under the previous administration, we'd be further ahead because, and I don't know, we'll have to check on what are the hang-ups, if there still are hang-ups on the acquisition. But I know the properties are being purchased and the utilities so it's moving ahead. It may be going slower than we anticipated, but if we find anything, Todd and I will post something on the web here. We should just do an update on KGB just to begin with here this week so you can see it, okay?
Right here. Hi, my name is Julie Morgan. I live in Sutton. And I think we all have COVID stories, but I'm not going to go there with mine. I'm concerned about your budget. I'm concerned that it looks like there could be $1 billion of cuts that can be made, including what's the loophole that Hillcorp has found to get away from paying $65 million like the other oil companies are paying. And the fact that you've always said that you are pro-PFD, you don't want cuts to the PFD. Well, going from the standard to the POMV is a cut. It's a serious cut. And I think we need to really be strong. Take that red pen that I know you have lots of and cut the budget. Don't be afraid to cut the budget. We have an overspending problem with an out-of-control legislature. They don't want to listen to anything. They're off on their own tangent. And us as voters, let's change the players. We have to.
So, may I just briefly, we have reduced the budget. Many people think we can reduce it more. That's a discussion that many of your Valley legislators, we share the same idea that if more folks had the same thought, it would be lower. But I do want to say that it is 7%, the state spend is 7% lower than it was when I first got in there. I was handed a $1.6 billion deficit. I'm not making excuses, I'm just telling you, just laying the groundwork. But yes, there are things that we have to get changed in terms of legislation, so that there are cost-driving laws that we have in the books right now that we're going to have to get changed to make some substantial, long-lasting reductions. But your sentiments, I agree with. I hear a lot of people say that. They want me to cut the budget more, and I get that. Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Sherry, and I'm a nurse. I worked at AMTHC and had to give up my job there due to vaccine mandates. I found another job with a company that does not require vaccines. And now my job is in jeopardy again due to the CMS role of healthcare workers because we receive Medicare dollars. I was hoping that, like when you stood up for the employers with over 100 employees, that you would also stand up for the healthcare workers of Alaska and maybe join Governor DeSantis because my job is in jeopardy by the end of this month.
So, I'm very sorry. I've said this multiple times. Here's the problem now. Here's and it's not going to probably give you a lot of comfort, but here's the problem now. When the Supreme Court ruled the other day, right, and everything was rolled into that 100 employers or more, we didn't envision them carving out healthcare employees. We envisioned them being treated like all the others in the 100 or more employees/businesses, because they carved that out, and then they ruled that you have to get a vaccine. When I say there's nothing I can do, this is that Supreme Court ruling that said everyone else doesn't have to get a vaccine in the 100 plus. That same ruling now stipulates that the healthcare workers have to get not have to get a vaccine. If their employers want them to get a vaccine, then that's a legal approach. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, follow-up on that though is by withholding Medicare dollars, the employers that don't want to force their employees to have vaccines will have no choice. Otherwise, they can't get paid. And so we're stuck in the position where we can't work as a nurse, which I love working as a nurse. I love caring for people, but I'm not going to be allowed to do that anymore because I won't be able to find an employer that doesn't receive Medicare dollars. Governor DeSantis is standing up. I think you can too.
Let me tell you what the thing about what in Florida was just dealt a fatal blow by the Supreme Court. In other words, it wasn't Ron per se, it was the legislature with Ron, legislature passing a law. But it doesn't matter once the Supreme Court makes these type of rulings, and I don't want to cloud the issue. Once they make that ruling, it doesn't matter what Ron or Kristi Noem or Greg Abbott or Mike Dunleavy have done. That is now the law. That law, that court ruling that they just passed.
I disagree. I think that if a bunch of governors, like we did last time, stood together and said, no, we will not allow this, and fought the Supreme Court.
That's what this court.
Okay,
I'll ask my Attorney General, but I asked the question, and we're in a tough spot once the Supreme Court rules on this issue. We're in a tough spot.
Just a quickie question to you as well as the governor on that. Have you applied for a religious exemption? Because that isn't that the loophole that the Supreme Court gave out that the employer?
It's always been there. You can always apply for religious exemption. And the one last thing I'll say is this: I think it makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me when we have a shortage of healthcare workers to have to force them. There may be a situation or two, and I'm not a healthcare professional. I don't know if an oncology office or where there's people with no immune systems. But it makes no sense to me, just as a matter of practice now, just to say, you don't want to get your vaccination, you're gone. With all the skills, training, and what you've done for people, it makes no sense to me. And I would hope that we're going to talk to our Attorney General, but it's looking tough because of that decision they made, not just for Alaska, but for every state. But I'll have that conversation.
Hello, I have a question. There's actually two issues, both regarding infrastructure. I understand that the borough has its own DOT situation as far as maintaining the roads, etc. But there's an infrastructure bill that was just passed, signed, I understand. Is that going to go toward helping us out here as well? My grandson was just hit and run out on Fairview Loop because it's dark, there's ice, he wasn't seen, he was hit twice. The second person that ran over him actually called the police. Also, the other infrastructure question is about the port that he knows about. He was a longshoreman. I was down there with him, and I personally saw some of the things that are holding up the pier falling, the pylons falling over. It's very dangerous out there for our guys to work. That is our main source of getting anything in this. All the trucks come loaded, full loaded, and they need some help out there. They need that to be, it's a big issue.
Yeah, great question, real brief. So we're taking apart that infrastructure bill that was passed. We're trying to, or we should know here this week, we have had folks on this now for about 3-4 weeks on it, working on it, but we should know very briefly, or shortly I should say, what is in there and what monies potentially can be used, for example, for the port. And we know there's a lot of road money that's in there and where we would put that road money. I will say that I've been to the port. I've seen the piers with holes in them and the water coming in. Excuse me?
Deteriorating.
Oh yeah, yep, absolutely. So that is a priority, not just for Anchorage, but for the state of Alaska for the reasons that you've stated. So that's something that we're working on. As a matter of fact, we're going to be having meetings with Matsu Borough and Anchorage Borough over the port situation on both sides. But yes. And we just have to be careful. As a side note, we're going through this slowly because we want to make sure that there are no hidden landmines in that bill. Meaning, if you take $1 for a port, does that mean you have to do something that we would consider to be hostage taking in education or something bizarre? Sometimes when these bills come out, if you take $1, they want something over here. But we believe that there is money in there that can help with the infrastructure, including the roads and the ports. We'll have a better understanding once our guys finish up their analysis here this week.
Okay, so Governor Dunleavy, the last time you had the privilege of speaking with me, I had asked you about your very unconstitutional mandates, one of which you did indeed tell private businesses what to do when you shut them down and then allow them to reopen at a certain capacity. You told hospitals what to do. You closed the houses of God. You even decided for people how close they could be to one another and who they could be around. My question for you today actually is in regards to the travel mandate. Before COVID, before our leaders, your administration included, took part in making me a non-essential human, I was actually a globetrotter. In addition to visiting all 50 states, I had been to about 70 different countries, many of which were off the beaten paths that no one really goes to, like Moldova or Azerbaijan. And all of my travels, airport landings, through borders, airport and land borders, airport and sea borders at ferry terminals were all pretty straightforward. Land borders could get pretty chaotic, particularly like South America. You had to make sure you had all your stamps in line, or you might not be getting out of the country. Even in Syria, when I crossed into Syria as a single American woman, I was held up a little bit at the border along with everybody else on the Turkish tour bus while I tried to figure out who was going to be responsible for protecting me. I never, ever encountered anything so bizarre as landing at the Anchorage International Airport before airplanes stopped allowing those with medical conditions to fly without a mask. My question for you is, was the state, there was a rumor going around, in regards to the travel mandate landing at the airport, was the state receiving passenger lists from TSA? What was the reasoning behind the mandate that Alaskans either forced to a test that was bought from China? And I just recently watched a medical program that said that, it was a medical doctor actually who was talking with Representative Jim Jordan about how they were collecting genetic information through these tests. So Alaskans were encouraged that they had to either be forced to do this test or they had to waive away their constitutional right to assemble and quarantine without symptoms. So I'm just curious, how can you justify this mandate, and what is your reasoning behind thinking that this mandate was going to be beneficial when none of the other states, to my knowledge, were doing this?
So I can't address the genetic issues or this because I have not heard about that until this moment, to be perfectly honest with you. But so once again, when this virus hit and was coming from China, and the federal government under previous President Trump began to limit travel from Europe and from Asia in order to better understand this virus. We had just gotten word that coming into Seattle, folks were getting very sick. Many folks, especially in your senior homes, were dying. Again, hindsight looking back, I wish I had the vision I have today, and I think many governors, well, no, I do. I really do wish I had the vision I have today, because many governors feel the same way. We would have had to go through some things. So coming in from China, coming up from Seattle, we had two vectors for this virus. And the hope was that by folks understanding and then testing, we could see how much virus was coming into the state of Alaska to give us an idea how long possibly our systems could function under this situation. Once we understood, once we start to understand this more and more, obviously the protocols changed over time, quickly in many cases. But I would say this, there are states, people are going to think I'm picking on Florida. I'm not, because I think they're an example for a lot of good things. Florida, if you remember, was actually stopping people coming from New York and New Jersey. They didn't want them coming to Florida because of all the virus in New York and New Jersey. That's documented. That's in the news. That's a fact. And so what I'm saying is, I wish I knew. I wish I was clairvoyant. And I'm not using that as an excuse, and I'm not throwing myself at the mercy of the court. I think a lot of folks wish the same thing. I think I think they do. You're shaking your head no. I think a lot of people wish.
I knew with my high school civics education. Senator Reinbold tried to tell you, and you silenced her. When you silenced her, you silenced me.
Senator Reinbold, for 9 to 12 months, had unfettered access to say whatever she wanted to say.
And she was the voice for people like me who had none.
Yeah, I don't silence anybody, okay? I have an opinion too, and if I have an opinion that what somebody is saying, let me be blunt, is out to lunch, people say the same thing to me. They'll tell me, people here will give me their opinion that I'm out to lunch. I respect that. I think people should give their opinion when they think somebody is out to lunch. But with regard to understanding the virus, you know, there may be some people that will never, quote, forgive or get over that. I wasn't the only one that was trying to understand this thing. I was not the only person in this country or in this state that was trying to understand this thing. Okay? I wish it never happened. I didn't run for office to say, pray at night that there'd be a pandemic to play with people's lives. That's not why I do this job. So, did the best I could, along with 50 other governors, presidents, what I thought were some of the best people there were, trying to do the best job they could. And we're going to continue to try to do the best job we can. That's all I could tell you. But in terms of silencing people, I got a lot of people that tell me what they think all the time on a regular basis. A lot of things. No? Well, they do. They do. Senator Reinbold can say whatever she wants, and she does. That's her opinion. I've got my opinions on things. Many of which I agree with her on, but not all.
Governor Dunleavy, John Nelson here. How are you doing, sir? Thank you for coming out. Appreciate it, really do. There's really two pieces in my mind that are very important. First of all, you know, everybody's all trying to understand this COVID crap. I think we should fire Ann Zink first. To help you understand what's going on with this Chinese flu virus. I do have some, with permission, I'll bring it up to you. I'll do that. But also the second thing that's really important to me is the 2020 general election. If we do not fix the 2020 general election, we'll never have another I also ask you to release the information to help us, but we also need a full forensic audit.
Yes!
There was 2,800 people, almost 2,800 people that voted, that registered after the deadline and voted, and that's a challenge. You know, so you know, there's many things that are faulty with that, and we need to fix those things. But with this, what I have here for you, sir, can I put this down here?
I might not get through it all today, John.
No. This right there is the flyer on the election that we need to fix. But also inside of here, this is a packet of information that we should really be calling it what it is, because it is a bioweapon that was unleashed on humanity. Yeah. And that package there has physical information that needs to be getting to the Department of Justice and to the State Attorney General, because there's no less than 7 felony accounts that you have in possession right there that you need to get to those individuals, along with the other State Attorney Generals, because it is a bioweapon unleashed on humanity. And with that, thank you for your time.
Are those mine?
This is for you, sir. And this is for you, sir.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Governor, I got Dr. Farr on the phone as well. So you want to comment on that, or?
No. I thought you had Dr. Farr say something to speak. Okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Farr. You're barely coming. Hold on a second. Let me get you back on the speaker. Okay, there you go. You're back on speakerphone.
Okay. You want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay, so Governor, thank you very much for your stance on not marking this down like so many other governors have done. I really appreciate that. But we need to get rid of these mandates. The mask mandates, if you look at the space study out of Bangladesh, only 1% difference. It was 7.6% of people that wore surgical masks got COVID, 8.6 without masks or with cloth masks. So there was no difference between wearing cloth masks and people that had no masks on. So one of the things we need to do is get our kids back to school without masks. Second thing is Second thing we need to do is actually block these vaccine mandates. I've already seen about 1% of my practice. I've got well over 500 people that have been vaccinated. 1% of my patients are getting severe reactions to disease. A 26-year-old with a stroke, 28-year-old with seizures, 42-year-old with heart attack, 50-year-old with uncontrolled muscle spasms the last 3 months, and then a woman with cardiac arrhythmias that got the vaccine. So there are certain problems with these vaccines. I was reading a study last night, and it looks like about 2% of the lots are contaminated and are resulting in thousands of people having adverse reactions to them. And I think we need to halt these vaccines under the age of 30 until we get more information, especially because these vaccines do not cover Omicron at all. I mean, most of the patients I'm seeing are double and triple vaccinated that have the Omicron, and so I'm really concerned about long-term fertility, heart attacks, myocarditis. The risk of myocarditis is 1 in 1,300 with some of these vaccines, and so, I'm concerned that we're doing more harm than good to our youth, especially because we have no deaths under the age of 20 here in Alaska. So that's one thing that I'm really concerned about. And then the other thing is, I know I'm back to hydroxychloroquine and CPAP work. We're turning away 20 patients a day. I'm seeing between 4 and 7 new patients a day. We're having to turn away literally hundreds of patients each month that want these medications, and now we can't even hardly find anybody in Alaska that will provide these medications, which is going to result in our hospitalization rate and death rate going up. And so part of it was the stance that the Department of Health and Human Services took initially on ivermectin, and now the Pharmacy Board. And unless we can get these totally safe medications, I'm afraid we're going to see a lot more deaths up here, and people are going to start using the veterinary form of this and everything else. So we desperately need help there. I know there is the new Paxlovid, but we don't know long-term effects of that. It turns out that the Merck product causes tetragenic effects, and so you can't give it to anybody basically of childbearing age, or if they get it for some reason they have to abstain from intercourse for at least 3 months, both women and men, because of the negative effects it has on the testicles and ovaries. So we need, the monoclonal antibodies have been good so far, but we definitely need to get these early treatments, and there's going to be more early treatments coming up. We need to make sure that they're more widely available for people so they can get them, and we also need to get people prepared for the next wave that's coming. Make sure we have oximeters in the home. I appreciate the fact that you're doing the test kits, but we need to get blood pressure cuffs, thermometers, make nebulizers more available for people. So, when this next wave comes around, we'll be prepared for it, because the Omicron may provide long-lasting protection, or it may not. But anyway, I'm very concerned about the future waves that are coming of this virus, because it seems to mutate very quickly.
Dr. Farley, you would like to respond?
Actually, Doc, I'd like to ask you, let's see, we're doing some technical issues here. Can you hear me, Doc?
Yes, I can.
So you said something, I just want to make sure that in terms of getting the therapeutics, you said something about the pharmacy board. Can you repeat that, please, so I can make sure I understand it?
Yeah, it looks like the pharmacy board has taken a stance against ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Okay. And so most of the pharmacists are refusing to dispense it, even though it's one of the world's safest medications. Out of 4 billion prescriptions, there's only been like 500 adverse reactions, so it's much safer than Tylenol and aspirin. And it's used not only for this, it's also used for a wide variety of other treatments, and it also looks like it's got activity against other viruses, including Ebola. And so we need to be able to have these therapeutics, the hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, and not have pharmacists block us from getting our patients the treatment they need, because they are going to be going to alternative meds like veterinary medicines, or ordering this stuff out of who knows where off internet.
Okay, thanks. I'll make a direct inquiry, because I heard something different. And then the other question is, on this Omicron, from your perspective, from what you're seeing, are the symptoms mostly upper respiratory and not going into the lungs?
That is true for most people. There are a few people that it is going into the lungs. We're seeing a lot more muscle aches and pains with this one, higher fevers. There is still some Delta circulating, but the Omicron does seem to be milder. But because there's so many mutations on it, the vaccine isn't very effective, and neither is the unfortunately, natural immunity is working much better than the vaccines, but it's not 100%.
And then the last question, which I think is what you're saying, but I just want to clarify, is regardless of what the variant is in the future, the key to keeping folks out is going to be the therapeutics out of the hospitals.
That is 100%. We need to be able to use all of it. There's 30 different medications. If you go to C19early.com or C19study.com, it lists the 30 different therapeutics that different countries are using. And the problem is that some of them are very expensive. They're thousands of dollars. So we need to get the inexpensive ones that are safe, that have track records anywhere from 20 to 50 years. We need to be able to use those until we get more medications like the Paxlovid. But again, we need to have a track record on that. I've only had one patient on that so far. Didn't have any side effects. They were in their 70s. But, I have to have more options available. And I need to not be blocked by pharmacists when I write prescriptions.
All right, Doc, I'm going to give it back to Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Farr. I got time for one more question.
Thank you. No. I'm going to follow up quickly. I have some information here. Number one, when we do the same thing over and over again, and it doesn't work, they call it insanity. Our federal government for the last 2 years has had
put it closer to your mouth.
It's on, just put it on. It's on, just get to my
Okay, our federal government for the last 2 years, now we're going to year 3, is we're going to develop a vaccine that's going to cure everything. They actively suppressed hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and other alternate treatments. We've learned you have to treat this disease early. You can't go shopping from 3 different pharmacies when you have COVID. It literally turned me around, hydroxychloroquine turned me around in 2 hours. I went from 94 to 97 blood ox in 2 hours after my loading dose of hydroxychloroquine. But cars in Eagle River tried to kill me. Walgreens in Eagle River tried to kill me. They refused to fill the prescription. Now, when you're sick, and I was 75 years old at the time, I'm 76 now, I think, and they tried to kill me.
So your doctor, I just want to make sure your doctor prescribed?
Yes, my doctor's prescribed. Yes, I had a prescription with my doctor, my age management doctor in Soldado. Anyway, some things, and this is backed up what Dr. Farr just talked about. The vaccines are not effective. In fact, in anything, they exacerbate hydroxychloroquine. Here's what the federal government did with ivermectin, showing a person with a horse. The people now don't trust Joe Biden on COVID. He's down to 15% on that. 33% of the people in this country do not trust the President of the United States, period. Period. Those are the numbers. Now, it's time to completely change course. Stop the insanity. Fauci's polls about 30%. He's got a lot of baggage. He's been wrong for 2 years. It's time to go to a treatment-based system. And here's a whole bunch of young people who are either dead or very sick from the vaccine. And that's enough.
Okay, I want to get this one lady, this young lady here that you had her hand up for a long time too. This is the last question, so I got to get the governor out of here by 12:30.
Hi, Governor Dunleavy. I have a statistic here, and it's from 2016, so it could have changed a little bit since then, but 392 non-education public employees for every 10,000 residents reside in Alaska. That's non-education. When I go to Alaska Policy Forum.org to look up salaries, when I type in admin assistant, just admin assistant for the Anchorage School District for the admin assistant. So my question to you is, what's the feasibility of doing a statewide government department by department audit? What's the feasibility of doing a statewide government department by department audit of all the admin and costs of every single department? I know it would take a lot, but private companies are audited by the government every day. We should audit the government now.
Certainly we can do that. Just to let you know, again, not to counter what you're saying, what you said is, I like what you said. So in many departments right now, we have probably 20 or 30% vacancies, which we're not spending the money on, but nonetheless, the vacancies exist. So when we look at a reduction in the budget, as I mentioned earlier, the budget has been reduced. But what you're bringing up are some of the things that we have to look at, meaning there are statutes, and I didn't realize that. When I first went in, I was having conversations with many people here. I thought you could go in, common sense, you look at this, you reduce the budget, we don't need it, or it's redundant. But we got some statutes in place that make that a little difficult. And so those are some of the hurdles that we have to have discussions with our legislators this year and then going into next year to be able to change that so we can make not just the government more responsive, but make sure that what we're paying for is what we all want. But yes, I agree with you.
Governor, you got 2 minutes and you got to get out of here.
Well, first of all, I'm glad this was not an engagement ring light. I'm glad this was a medal with President Trump on it. And I'll come back and I'll be speaking to you guys more. Contrary to what some say, I'm not afraid to talk to people. I'm not afraid to talk to you. There are very good friends that have got in this room. Some of them have said to me, "I'm really irritated with you. I'm really irritated with this." I get that as well with my 3 daughters at home. They're always irritated with me. But I don't want to poo-hoo the stuff that you're worried about. I'm not going to poo-hoo the stuff that you're concerned about. I'm not going to poo-hoo the stuff that we've seen nationwide, across the country, issues here in the state of Alaska, that really make you wonder where this country is going to go and where the state is going to go. I don't want to poo-hoo that. And I can tell you this, contrary to what some may say, my goal and my value system is not to destroy the state of Alaska. It's not to destroy this state or this country. That's not what I'm here for. It's not what I want. I appreciate the feedback that people give me. There will be and have been adjustments made as a result of feedback from people across the state of Alaska. I've been on the Kenai having meetings such as this. I've been in Anchorage having meetings such as this. I've been in Fairbanks having meetings such as this. Not to just have people go away and say, "Oh, we listened to us. He's a nice guy." I'm getting a number of ideas that I think are actually very, very good ideas. I'm listening to people because I think it's very important. We can't do our job. Other states like Texas and California, you're probably not going to get a lot of these meetings just because of the size of the state. But I do appreciate these. And I will be out for more of these meetings. And I do want to do a good job as governor. And I don't have enough time here today to toot my own horn, and I'm not really a horn tooter because I'm like you guys. I was on 45 acres up the road here, having a fun time riding my mules and horses, but like you guys, start to see things that I thought we could do better. And I think we can do better, and I think we can always do better. But there's a couple things that were said here today that we got to double check on, and I got to double check on an issue that the doc brought up on the pharmacy board. So number of things we're going to look at. I'm going to have more meetings across the state, but I do appreciate this, and I'm sorry I have to run, and I will call you. Okay?
I can get that.
Good. Hold on a second. Hold on a second, folks. I just got a couple things I want to pass on. Next month, February 5th, at Chugiach Senior Center at 10 a.m., we have Kelly Shabaka, who's going to be our guest speaker, candidate for U.S. Senate. I would invite you all to Chugiach Senior Center, 5 Feb at 10 a.m. Secondly, I do want to, there's a lot of questions A lot of people wanted questions that didn't get a chance to ask. I'm sorry. And unfortunately, we had some people that went way over their time and created a problem with that. So I'm sorry about that. We got as much in as we could get in. Take what the governor has said. Take it or leave it. Okay?
Are you going to email us again like you did the last meeting?
Yes. Yes. So if you're on my email list for AMAC, you will be getting further information on 5 February. Okay? Drive safe. Stay safe. Make Alaska great
Everybody
again.
out there, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for everybody that has taken the time to like and share this video. You guys are rock stars. You are what makes this successful and make sure that the information gets out there to all Alaskans so that we are well informed on what is going on. I never did get a chance to ask my questions about the upcoming legislative session that begins next week. That is unfortunate. We all know for a fact they're just going to walk all over us. A lot of good questions here today. Governor shared some of the questions about COVID, about what he's doing for the future in Alaska, maybe what his intentions may be. Take it, listen to it, see what you think, make up your own minds and your own opinions about what was said and discussed here today. Really do appreciate you being here. Don't forget to like and share. Please go to my website, Politadick.com. Click on that support button. All your proceeds go right back into making sure that we can continue to do these broadcasts out here. These things are not cheap to operate. Right now we are streaming on 2 Facebook channels, Politadick Unfiltered. You also can find this broadcast on YouTube and on Twitter right now. Don't hesitate. Go like them all. Make sure you follow them. Hit those notification bells so that we get notified when we go live. And again, go to our website, Politadick.com. Click on that support button. All proceeds go right back into upgrading our equipment. Video cameras and switching and hi-fi, Wi-Fi, signal setups are all what's in the works for coming up. Laptop is currently in the shop being upgraded with larger hard drives and faster internet connections so that I can stream at levels that you would never imagine possible here in the state of Alaska. At least I didn't think it was possible until I started doing some investigating. Thank you all for being here today. You guys all have a great weekend. Enjoy your Saturday.